All right, today we're jumping into a fantastic guide on how to get started with Proxmox. We're going to walk through the whole journey, from picking out your hardware all the way to a fully operational server. Let's get right to it.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own private cloud? Or maybe a home server lab where you can just play around, test things, and host your own stuff all from one single computer? Well, that's exactly the kind of power we're going to unlock.
So, what is Proxmox anyway? Simply put, it's this amazing open-source tool that lets you take one physical computer and slice it up into a bunch of independent virtual machines, or VMs. It's kind of like having an entire server rack's worth of computers all packed into one box.
Okay, so before we can install any software, we need a machine to actually install it on. And this brings us to our very first big decision, the hardware.
You've basically got two ways you can go here. The first and most budget-friendly option is to just recycle an old computer. That dusty PC in the closet? It might be perfect for this. The other way is to build a custom machine from the ground up, which, gives you a ton more power.
Now, if you do want to build your own, the guide gives this awesome example build. We're talking an AMD Ryzen 9 CPU, a proper server-grade motherboard, a whopping 128 gigs of that super stable ECC memory, and some crazy fast NVMe storage. Yeah, it's a bit of an investment, but this thing is an absolute powerhouse for a home lab.
But, no build is ever perfect. The guide points out a couple of real-world hiccups they ran into. First, the HDMI port on the motherboard just didn't work. Turns out that's a known quirk. And second, a standard power supply didn't quite fit without a special 3D printed bracket. These are the kinds of little details that can save you a huge headache.
So, with our hardware all sorted out, it is time to install Proxmox itself. And don't worry, the installer is really good about walking you through everything.
The whole process really boils down to these four main stages. First, you make a bootable USB stick with the Proxmox installer on it. Second, you tell it which hard drive to use. Third, and this is a big one, you set up your password and your network info. And finally, you just click install and let it do its thing.
Okay, pay attention because this part is really, really important. You're going to get to a network screen, and you need to give your server a static IP address. That means an address that never changes. And make sure it's one that your router isn't already trying to hand out to your phone or laptop. Getting this right is absolutely essential.
At the very, very end of the installation, you're going to see a screen with a web address on it. It'll be an HTTPS URL with a port number, like 8006 at the end. You have to write this down. I'm serious. This is the key to your entire server.
All right, Proxmox is installed, the server has rebooted. Now what? Well, there are a couple of little housekeeping things we need to take care of right away.
Your first three moves are super simple. 1. Log in to that web address you wrote down. Your username is root and the password is the one you just set. 2. Go to the Updates section and run a refresh to see what's new. And 3. Once everything is installed, give the server one more reboot just to make sure it all sticks.
Now, when you check for those updates, you might get a little error message. That's totally normal. It's just because Proxmox by default is set up to look for a paid enterprise subscription. But what if you're just using this at home?
Well, here's a great little pro tip from the guide. You can go into the repository settings and just turn on the No Subscription repository. This lets you get all the community-tested updates, which is perfect for keeping a home server up to date without needing a paid license.
All right, the server is set up. It's updated, it's ready. Now for the really fun part. Let's make our very first virtual machine.
Proxmox makes this so easy. You don't even have to download the operating system to your own computer first. You just find the download link for whatever you want, say Debian Linux, you paste that web address right into Proxmox, and it downloads the file directly to the server for you.
It's awesome. Once that installer file is downloaded, you just click Create VM and a little wizard pops up. This whole process is basically just deciding how much of your server's hardware, how much CPU, how much RAM, you want to give to this new virtual machine. So let's run through the big ones. First up, the CPU. This is where you decide how many of your server's processor cores this VM gets to use. It's basically how fast it can think.
For a basic Linux server, like in the example, 2 cores is a great starting point.
Next is memory, or RAM. You can think of this as the VM's short-term memory or its workspace. It's just as important for making sure things run smoothly.
We'll give this one 2 gigabytes. And here's a little tip. Some operating systems need this much just to install, but you can always turn the RAM down a bit after it's all set up.
And finally, every computer needs storage. So here we're creating a virtual hard drive for our VM, just carving out a little piece of the server's actual storage space.
32 gigabytes is a really solid size for a basic server, but of course, you can make this bigger or smaller depending on what you're planning to do.
You just look over the summary, click Finish, and that's it. You've literally just created a brand new virtual computer, and it's sitting there, ready for you to install its operating system.
And yeah, this quote from the source really says it all. In just these few steps, you've gone from a pile of parts or an old PC to having your very own Proxmox server, all set up and fully operational.
So that really brings us to the end. Your server is ready to go. The power is in your hands. The only real question left is, what are you going to create with it?